The Kansas City Chiefs have some big decisions to make soon, with 20 players set to hit free agency. On top of that, they need to address some weak spots in the roster, especially where there's talent missing. There's also the possibility that the legendary tight end, Travis Kelce, could be thinking about retiring soon, and some key defenders might be leaving as well. We'll dive into all of that, including the depleted wide receiver group, in just a bit. But first, let's talk about some important upcoming moves. Starting tomorrow, NFL teams can begin placing the franchise tag on a player, although they don't have to do it right away. Teams actually have until March 4th to decide whether or not to use the tag. The Chiefs, in particular, might be looking at Trey Smith as the most likely candidate for the franchise tag. Now, I'm not saying this in any disrespectful way when I mention slapping the tag on him, but it's just a term used to describe this process, which helps prevent a player from entering free agency or allows for a tag and trade situation, similar to what happened with linebacker Larente McCray. While it's not a sure thing that the Chiefs will tag Smith, it's a possibility. The main reason why it would cost the Chiefs around $25 million to franchise tag Trey Smith is because the franchise tag value for offensive linemen is based on the top 5 highest paid salaries across the entire offensive line, not just for guards. That means tackles are included in the mix, which increases the price. For example, the highest paid guard in the NFL right now is Landon Dickerson of the Eagles at $21 million per year. So the franchise tag for Trey Smith will likely cost a bit more than that, but probably won't hit $25 million, which would be crazy high. However, it's possible the Chiefs could let Trey Smith walk and use those resources to improve other areas, like left tackle. After all, there's only so much money to go around when it comes to paying the offensive line. Currently, the combined salary cap hit for the Chiefs' offensive line starters, including Jawan Taylor, Joe Thuney, and Creed Humphrey, stands at $64.9 million. This number could change, especially if Joe Thuney is given a contract extension. Even though he's 33 years old, Thuney is still playing at a high level, and an extension could help lower his cap hit. Thuney is actually the second oldest player on the team, only behind Travis Kelce, unless they bring back long snapper James Winchester, who is a free agent. We'll know soon enough what direction the Chiefs will take with the franchise tag and Trey Smith. But one thing's for sure, the team is definitely facing some tough choices. And no, the franchise tag is not likely going to be placed on linebacker Nick Bolton. Franchise tagging linebacker Nick Bolton doesn't seem like the best move for the Chiefs, especially with a price tag of $27 million. That's a steep cost, and it's just not something the team is likely to do. But let's talk more about Bolton in a bit. The Chiefs have several options regarding Trey Smith, as I mentioned earlier. One option is to franchise tag him as a placeholder while working out a long-term deal, which would need to be finalized by July 15th. Alternatively, they could tag him to prevent him from walking into free agency or even use the tag to potentially trade him for some draft capital. If they choose to let Smith walk, they might end up with a third-round compensatory pick. It's definitely an interesting situation, and there's a good chance Smith might leave, with the Chiefs possibly focusing on a replacement, either from within the roster, like Hunter Norrad or King Umah, or through the draft. The offensive line isn't the only area the Chiefs need to focus on this offseason. With 20 unrestricted free agents, the team will have plenty of decisions to make, especially with some key players on defense and the wide receiver room likely looking very different next year, aside from the 2 main stars. Let's break down some of the top defensive free agents and what that could mean for the Chiefs moving forward. On defense, safety Justin Reid, defensive end Charles Omenihu, and linebacker Nick Bolton are some of the biggest names hitting free agency. Other important defensive players like Mike Pinnell, Turk Wharton, and Derek Nady are also up for grabs, and they've all played key roles on the defensive line. Reid is 28 years old and likely looking for a deal in the range of 3 years, which makes sense given his solid performance. He's been a reliable contributor, staying healthy and playing in almost every regular season and playoff game over the past 3 years. His previous contract was for 3 years and $31.5 million, averaging around $10.5 million per year, putting him just outside the top 10 highest-paid safeties in the league. I wouldn't mind seeing Reid return, but I understand if the Chiefs choose to move on, especially if they think Jaden Hicks could step into a bigger role. Hicks showed some promising moments during his rookie year, and if the coaching staff feels confident in him, they might take the gamble on his potential. As for Nick Bolton, his situation is a little more complicated. While he's been a crucial part of the defense and excels at stopping the run and calling plays as the Mike linebacker, he's struggled in coverage, especially when it comes to chasing down faster players on the outside. His lack of top speed has shown at times, and he dealt with injuries during the 2023 season, playing only about half the year. So the Chiefs have some tough decisions to make when it comes to Bolton. He's been a fantastic piece of the defense, but his weaknesses in coverage might make the team question whether to invest in him long-term or explore other options. Nick Bolton made a solid comeback in 2023, playing in most of the games after missing some time with injuries. He's made some huge plays for the Chiefs, including that key tackle for a loss against the Falcons in the final moments of the game, which forced a turnover on downs and helped secure the win for Kansas City. According to Spot Track, Bolton's market value is estimated to be around $12 million per year, and he could even land a deal worth $14 to $16 million per year, which would place him among the top 5 linebackers in terms of average annual salary. Spagnuolo, the Chiefs' defensive coordinator, has spoken highly of Bolton, crediting him as a key piece of the defense. However, the good news for the Chiefs is that Drue Tranquill is signed through 2026 at a much more affordable rate of $6.3 million per year, which is about half of what Bolton could command. When Bolton was sidelined for part of the 2023 season, Tranquill stepped in and filled the Mike linebacker role, proving he can handle the job. If the Chiefs don't reach a long-term deal with Bolton and let him walk into free agency like they might with Trey Smith, they can rely on Tranquill to take over. Additionally, Leo Chenal's role could expand in 2025, especially after his impressive special teams play, like blocking 2 field goals. The Chiefs might also look to the upcoming draft to add more depth to the linebacker position. Next up, let's talk about defensive end Charles Omenihu. I would love to see him back with the Chiefs, but it's going to be tricky since Omenihu is coming off an ACL injury and didn't play a full season. He's also entering his late 20s and will likely want a significant contract, especially since some of the top-paid defensive ends in the league are making $22 million or more per year. While I don't think he'll get that kind of deal due to his injury, it's understandable if he asks for it. If the Chiefs can manage to bring him back for something close to the 2-year, $16 million deal they gave him 2 years ago, that would be a no-brainer move. The defensive line is a key area to watch, as it needs to provide more support around Chris Jones. Jones is one of the best in the business and a game-changer, but when he was absent in the Super Bowl, the pass rush suffered. Omenihu's return could be a vital part of the rotation, and the Chiefs need other players to step up too. I'm also hoping that FAU, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, can develop and that George Karlaftis continues to shine. The D-line definitely needs more pieces to build around Jones. On the offensive side, aside from the offensive line, which we've already covered in previous videos, another area to focus on is the wide receiver room. The Chiefs have 5 wide receivers scheduled to hit free agency: DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, Justin Watson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Mecole Hardman. That leaves just Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy as the main receivers under contract for next year. Thankfully, Rice showed a lot of promise before his injury, and having him alongside Worthy could form a solid duo for the Chiefs' passing attack. However, it's clear that Kansas City will need to address the wide receiver position this offseason, whether through free agency or the draft, to make sure they have enough firepower around Patrick Mahomes. Xavier Worthy looked fantastic as the season came to a close, showing a lot of potential for the future. Nico Oreo, also under contract for less than $1 million, will likely make the roster as the team's returner and a depth piece on offense. That gives us 3 solid options for the wide receiver group. The 4th spot could go to Sky Moore, though his future with the team is uncertain. Moore is in the last year of his rookie contract, but after a lackluster 2023 season, it's hard to see him sticking around. He only had 3 targets, 0 catches, and 0 yards last year, and he ended the season on injured reserve due to a core muscle injury that required surgery. Moore's best season was his rookie year, but his numbers in 2022 and 2023 were pretty similar, around 21 or 22 catches for about 250 yards. Frankly, a player like Nico Oreo could do that, so I think it's safe to say the Sky Moore experiment might be nearing its end. There are a few other receivers currently on the 90-man roster, including Jason Brownlee, Justin Ross, and Tyquan Thornton, who were all signed to future contracts last week. But it's hard to say if any of them will actually make the 53-man roster, let alone become a reliable, dependable target for Patrick Mahomes. Considering Rashee Rice is likely going to start the season suspended for the first 4 to 6 games, the Chiefs will definitely need another solid wide receiver who Mahomes can trust. We saw last season how injuries hit the Chiefs across both sides of the ball, yet they still managed to make it to the Super Bowl, but the wide receiver room definitely needs depth. That's why I think bringing back Marquise Hollywood Brown could be a good idea. Brown was injured for most of last year, which hurt his stock, but he's still just 28 years old when the season starts. Why not bring him back for a couple more years? The Chiefs signed him to a 1-year, $7 million deal last offseason, and they might be able to sign him for something around that range. Maybe 2 years for about $18 million, give or take a million or two. Brown could provide a reliable target, and if he's paired with a healthy Rice and Worthy, that would make for a solid wide receiver trio. There are other wide receivers who will hit free agency, such as Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Darius Slayton, DJ Chark, and of course, DeAndre Hopkins. Starting with Hopkins, I'm not sure he'll return. He'll be 33 in June, and aside from his age, he didn't make much of an impact after being traded to the Chiefs mid-season. Since December, he's averaged just about 3 catches and 20 yards per game. Mahomes tends to thrive when his receivers can get open, and Hopkins has become more of a throw it to me, and I'll win the battle kind of guy at this stage of his career. He's not the same separator in his routes that he once was, which might make it hard for him to fit into the Chiefs' offense long term. As for the wide receiver market, there are some interesting names, though some have red flags. Stephon Diggs, coming off an ACL tear, is one such player. He's also getting older, so it's unclear what kind of deal he'll get. T. Higgins is arguably the most attractive wide receiver available in free agency at just 26 years old. He'll probably command a deal worth around $30 million per year, but there's a strong chance the Bengals will franchise tag him. As it turns out, later today, the Bengals announced that they plan to franchise tag Higgins, which likely removes him from the free agent pool. A tag and trade scenario could still be in play, but that remains to be seen. That news bumps up the value of Chris Godwin, another intriguing option. However, Godwin is coming off a dislocated ankle injury. While he'll likely be back to full health soon, his market value could be upwards of $20 million per year. That's why I keep circling back to Hollywood Brown. He could be a more affordable option, possibly coming back for a 2-year contract worth less than what Godwin would get for just 1 year. Given the Chiefs' needs in cap space, Hollywood might be the smart move. Now, I want to know what you think. Would you prefer to see the Chiefs bring back Hollywood Brown, or would you rather target another free agent wide receiver? Let me know your thoughts on the current wide receiver situation in the comments. Moving to the running back room, this is one to watch closely as well. Isaiah Pacheco is the only running back who's certain to be on the roster in 2025. Jerick McKinnon and Kareem Hunt are both free agents. With a strong running back class in the draft, I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs grab a rookie to add depth. Pacheco, of course, will be entering the final year of his contract in 2025. McKinnon could be brought back as a third down back, especially at the right price, but Hunt is the more intriguing case. Despite no offseason or training camp, Hunt had a solid season, and with a full offseason, he could be even more effective. He'll be 30 years old by August, though, which could influence how much teams are willing to pay. The Chiefs could consider bringing one or both of these guys back, especially after the draft when prices could go down. The Chiefs might also draft a running back to add competition and create a 1-2 punch alongside Pacheco. While some might question bringing Hunt back, it's about looking at the team's needs and depth, and he could still be a valuable asset for the right price. So, to be clear, I'm not suggesting the Chiefs are definitely bringing any of these players back. I'm just sharing my thoughts on the potential options and what could make sense for the team moving forward. In terms of cap space, there's some concern about the Chiefs' current situation, but it's not as dire as some may suggest. Right now, they have about $5 million in cap space, and they'll need to free up more to make key moves. A potential Kelce retirement could unlock about $17 million in cap space, which would be a big boost. Even if Travis Kelce doesn't retire, the Chiefs can work to lower his $19.8 million cap hit. In the past, they've done this with other big contracts, like Patrick Mahomes' $66 million cap hit, so it's likely they'll restructure that deal again to create more flexibility. Beyond Kelce, the Chiefs can also look at restructuring contracts for players like Chris Jones, Jawan Taylor, and Creed Humphrey, among others. The team has a lot of room to maneuver with some of these larger contracts, which would give them more space to add pieces and re-sign players. A Joe Thuney extension could also be in play to lower his cap hit. Clark Hunt, the Chiefs' owner, tends to be more conservative in terms of spending, but the team can still get creative with cap space, just like the Eagles did. They used void years and other tactics to stay competitive while managing their cap. The Chiefs may explore similar strategies to free up more space, especially if they want to be more aggressive in building the roster for 2025. Lastly, while player moves are critical, I also hope the Chiefs make some coaching changes, particularly on the offensive side. The defense has seen some changes, but we haven't yet seen significant shifts on offense. That's something I've talked about in a previous video, so if you're interested in hearing more about it, definitely check it out. As always, I'll keep monitoring the situation and share updates as they come. The Chiefs have some important decisions ahead, and it'll be exciting to see how things unfold as we approach the 2025 season.